And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right, I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff. You loved it so much that you decided you wanted to come back for more. Folks, I'm never going to let you down. We have more for you. We have a fantastic guest today. She's got a great story. She's got a great business going on, a fantastic podcast. You're going to love every minute of this. So, strap into your seat and get ready because this is the podcast that is about podcasters. It's for podcasters. It's done by podcasters. Folks, this is where we come together and lift each other up as podcasters in a community. This is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So let's get sailing. Let's introduce our guest today. Please welcome to the show the host of the Business Podcast Spotlight. I can't wait to hear about that. Megan Dougherty. Megan, how you doing today?
Oh, all right. I'm so great, and I'm so glad to be here. So a wonderful show, and I feel like I'm in very august company to be a part of it.
Oh, thanks so much. Oh, I appreciate that. And I said before, I love your energy. I mean, you came here ready to go. You've been smiling since the moment you came on the screen. I love having somebody sitting across the table from me that's just that, ready to go and awesome. So,
Well, thank
um,
you.
before we get into everything you're doing, and it looks like you've got a lot going on, tell everybody, who is Megan? What are you about, and what brings you here today?
Well, it's a little bit funny. My business partner and some of our clients call me a mean, nasty person who hates joy and loves only spreadsheets. Because
Wow. Welcome to the show.
welcome to the show. As because I guess who I am and what I'm about when it comes to podcasting, when it comes to business, I like organization, I like patterns, I like structure, and I like systems. And when you apply all of those things to any business, mine happens to be podcasting, you can discover really interesting things and you can do really interesting things. And so I find taking that sort of system mindset to creative endeavors, that's across all area of my life, a really that's how I engage with the world, and that's how I really enjoy it.
Nice. System mindset. And so the very first thing I said to you was, hey, this is a real relaxed conversation with like no structure, and we just sit here and drink coffee and chat. Must have, I don't know, did it make you hysterical or did you handle that okay?
When I was listening to episodes in advance, I'm thinking, oh boy, these are personal conversations. This is deep. These are great, intimate discussions. I'm scared out of my mind.
I love
No,
it.
no, I'm excited to be here. And I'm excited to have it because there's so much room for both, right? And
Yeah,
even if you have an unstructured conversation, you've got a structure to the show. You've got a purpose for it, and so it all comes together in the end.
nice. All right. Well, I'm glad that you're looking, long term at the long term structure we have. But no, that's wonderful. So, that's great. I'll tell you what. Who is Megan? I mean, what are you about? Where are you from? What got you into wanting to talk to businesses and do podcasting and stuff?
Well, my background professionally, it started. I was a baker. I started my career working at doing food, and I always thought when I was a teenager, when I was a young adult, that I would be in food service forever because I loved it. But in my early 20s, I started to think, oh gosh, maybe this whole getting up very early in the morning to make pie, I might not want to do that forever. So I did what you did in 2010, and I went to Craigslist to find a new job. And I got a job as a marketer's assistant, and ended up growing with a marketing education startup that was all about online business building, building courses, building online communities. And I got to grow up with that startup and, start to manage a team, start to lead different projects. And when I eventually went out on my own and I was kind of at loose ends for a little while, a former colleague reached out to me and she said, "Hey, do you want to start a business together?" And I said, "Well, with you, Audra Casino, I would absolutely love to start a business together." So then we had to figure out what we were going to do. And since her background was in audio and video and multimedia, mine was in, marketing and digital strategy, we said, let's do podcasts for business owners because podcasts are very cool in 2017. They're only going to go up. That's when we started, and I've been doing it pretty much exclusively ever since, although I still make pies on the weekend.
I love it. All right, I love it. So that's a lot to unpack. I'm going to pick a couple
Yeah.
little pieces. All right. First, you've been doing it exclusively. So you do this full time. This is your full time
Yep.
job. Congratulations. I absolutely love
Thank
hearing
you.
that for folks. That just makes my day. The baker thing. I can't let that go. I've got to touch on that at least for a second. I don't know if I've ever talked to anybody who wanted to be a baker. Where does that come from? Is that a family thing? I mean, did it come from like your parents or something?
Uh, no, I mean, I was blessed to have been in families where I had excellent bakers as grandmothers,
Mm,
and so that was always a part of our life. But I just there's something about creating food as work and creating like food professionally that is so satisfying at a really gut level. I got into it, working at coffee shops, working in fast food for a while, and then I got into cafes, one of which did pies. So I helped the baker, and then I transitioned into doing more back of house work in different kitchens. And there's something that's so lovely about creating something that someone else is going to enjoy. And it's physical, it's real. You get your hands into it. You pick the fruit is beautiful, the sugar is beautiful, and it all comes together into this marvelous thing. I think there's nothing in the world so lovely as a nicely made pie. And
Wow.
it's unmitigated joy. And so being able to provide that to people in different contexts, I found as I got a little bit
Yeah.
older and you realize, oh, restaurant and food service businesses are really hard, and
Hmm.
that maybe it was time to explore other options.
Yeah. I love that. I've never even heard anybody describe that way. Um, you've honest and you just said you were blessed, with this. So this talent just sort of came to you, and it's just something that feels natural to you to bake.
Well, I guess I don't know if I'd claim talent. Baking is science. It's so you
Ah,
follow the recipes, you apply the heat, you apply the chemicals, and they become if you do everything correctly, it should work out. I mean, it doesn't always, but I think it's if you like it, there's something about that particular alchemy that I find very pleasing.
nice.
And just like a row of pies, ooh, that's a beautiful sight.
Nice. You seem to really be coming at things from a servant's mindset, like just doing things for others. Is that am I picking that up right from you?
Um, I think perhaps it's not necessarily conscious. I don't think. I don't kind of wake up in the morning and think, how am I going to serve others today? Maybe I should. Maybe better people do. But I find when I look back at the things that I have found the most satisfying, it often does come in, being a part of a community and being a contributing member of a community.
Maybe better people do? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. What in the what am I supposed to do with that? All right. I appreciate that. Goodness gracious. Listen, if you could open up a little and just tell me how you really feel, I would appreciate that. Maybe we can keep going with the podcast. All right. So, anyway, you love to bake. Awesome. Love it.
Mhm.
Definitely feeling blessed. Servant's mentality, system mindset. So, you like creating things, but you like creating things that have a purpose. Um, is that what draws you to podcasting and that kind of thing? I mean, how do you go from bakery to what you're doing, serving businesses? Because it seems like it's a big leap. Maybe it's not.
I think I mean it definitely was a leap when I left food service. It was to kind of start at the very bottom rung as an assistant in an online marketing company. It was a completely different world. I had been this was when I was college aged, and I had tried to go to business school because like, oh good, I'll learn all the skills I need to open my own restaurant. And I don't know if you've been to business school or if you know people who've been to business school, but it's awful. And it's not filled with the most shining examples of humanity that you want to spend all of your time with. So I dropped out and was kind of at loose ends for a little while until I, went to Craigslist and found this job, and it ended up being a spectacular education in terms of reading and learning and thinking about business and how people do business and buying and selling and why all of these things happen. And I found it tremendously interesting, especially when I got to a point in my career where I got to kind of manage and develop others. And so we've got this team of people who are all helping other people try to build businesses online. And I found it kind of similar things, being able to think of something, figure out how to do it, execute on it, and see it made real. Whether doing that for myself, whether doing it with a baked good, or whether doing it for someone's business, I think it's all really comes down to the same idea of being able to act in the world and make things happen. So they're really different like activities, but kind of the same basic idea.
Nice, nice, nice. That creation aspect is huge when you're looking at,
Mhm.
an entrepreneurial venture. So you and your partner, you get together,
Mhm.
and basically what you say is, we're going to start a business. We don't
Yeah,
have any idea what business, but we're just going to start a business because the two of us
pretty
jive,
much.
we work, it's going to be okay. That's
Yeah,
an interesting start to a story. So the two of you
yeah.
then uh, arrive at this idea and this path. Did your partner have a certain expertise that drew you that way, or was it from old business school stuff? Where'd that come from?
We did our very first iteration of the business was going to be more focused on video than podcasting. because that seemed like, back in 2017 when we're getting all of this going, we're just like, it's going to be about the video and the YouTube, and we'll do podcasts as well because you just get the audio out and that's going to work. But as we started to roll along, it turned out in order to have a more equal contribution, if it was going to be video, most of the work was going to be on my business partner's desk, and I wouldn't have as much to contribute because I didn't have the skills in video editing, or the the technical abilities that she had to be able to consult and do that. So when we started, networking and shaking the network tree and finding our first client, some of them did want podcasts rather than, video agency style work. And then we're like, oh, wait, then we can get into the notes, then we get into the repurposing. And I found ways that I could really add more to what we were providing.
Ah,
So we
okay.
decided to pivot because it was much more equal in what we could contribute doing podcasting rather than focusing on just like advertising or promotional style videos, which is where we had started.
This is, I mean, I love the story because you're literally identifying your own strengths and then
Yeah.
building the company based on your strengths, which is just sort of exactly against everything you learn in business school.
Dropping out has served me so well over the years.
It sounds
I
like
tell
it.
you, the best decision I ever made.
I know a lot
Not
of
to mention the
people.
money saved.
Right. I know a lot of people who went through business school, and they're not going to want to hear us say this right now, but it does. It sounds like that was perfect for you. And you've been doing this for what, 8 years now? Is that right?
Yeah, 8 years.
My goodness. So something happened correctly, which is awesome. And so you're building this up to your strengths, which is great. Now, which one of you? I'm an old sales dog from years
Mhm.
and years and years. So I'm always curious when I hear stories like this. Which one of you goes out and takes the bullet and takes on the sales aspect of it? And there's the hand going
That's
up. It was
me.
you.
Yeah,
Okay. How
it's
did
it
that
is
go?
I.
How did that go?
Uh, you know what? It ended up. I never found it too difficult. Well, I guess that's partly true. Finding the people to sell to, I always find a challenge. Getting someone from stranger to getting on a call to talking with me, I find that really difficult. But once someone does get on the call to talk with me, I've got, say this is another way I've been blessed. I can get really excited about other people's work and other people's projects. As excited about my own. I'm a behind the scenes person, right? I like to make things happen for other people. And so when you get into a conversation with someone and they're looking at podcasting, they're thinking about it, and if they're talking to someone, in this case me, who is really excited about what they can achieve and who's really excited about what we can do and how we can make it work and how we can modify it and how we can customize it and how we can make it easy, um, it's it doesn't always lead to a yes, but it very frequently does. So I find the sales itself, I don't find onerous, although kind of going that process of getting a stranger to book that discovery call or book that sales call, that's something I still find challenging.
Okay. Challenging in what way? Because I'm curious. I
Uh,
mean, were you able to you're very outgoing, I mean, at least right here, but is that
yeah,
you in the outside world, or is that just you in like a safe space?
I guess probably in a safer space. I'm not. I guess I'm ambiverted, both introverted and extroverted. The idea of kind of reaching out to a stranger with the intent to sell, even if I know it could be valuable, even if I know it could be helpful, it
Ah,
just I don't like it. It doesn't feel good to me to do that because I know the only reason I'm doing it would be to sell something. So it just it tweaks me a little bit wrong inside to do that. I know it's done and it's perfectly acceptable, in our culture
sure.
to do that, but I don't feel good about doing it. So I push it off and I avoid it and I delay. And to be honest, most of our company at this point, we're almost probably 95% referral ground. So it's direct referrals from people that we've worked with, sending us other people that we've ended up working with, which is, wonderful and flattering, but doesn't have that systems approach that I love so much in all other areas of work. So we've been exploring options over the last year for vendors and providers who can help us with that, get them to the phone point of the process.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. I love this. As you're talking about your business, tell folks exactly, who your client is, like who's the
Mhm.
business structured to go serve.
So our sweet spot with the people that we work with are usually going to be smaller business owners,
Okay.
1 to 10 people in professional service providers, usually in high trust and high emotion businesses. So lots of legal professionals, lots of finance professionals, sometimes healthcare, sometimes speakers, higher level coaches, consultants, any business who is expert is selling something quite valuable and requires a lot of knowing, liking, and trusting to get that sale closed. When those features are in place, we can design podcasts that are going to really shortcut and make those processes easier. And then everyone's very, very happy. So that's kind of, I'd say, high trust, high ticket, and high emotion businesses that are pretty small.
Nice. Okay. So you designed the podcast for the business.
Mhm.
Now you're not doing the podcast for the business, are you, or are you?
No, we have the ability to like my Audra, my wonderful partner, is a voice actor and can voice podcasts if required. But for an expert-led podcast, you really want to be you want the talent to be the business owner or a member of the business in some way,
Sure.
because that's the voice people are getting to know. That's the voice people are getting to trust. And those are the opinions that are actually of interest to leads, community, potential clients, current clients. It's they don't want to hear Joe Blow from Kokomo, right? They want to hear the person that they either know or could get to know. And so makes a lot more sense to have business owners or marketing managers or different people, partners within a firm, perhaps be the talent so that people can hear their voices.
Okay. So you create the podcast, and then
Mhm.
let's just say that I'm your client,
Yeah.
um, and I'm a coach. Okay. And you're going to, and I say, hey, I really want to be huge. I want to be gigantic. I want to make all kinds of money. I call you guys. I hire
Mhm.
you. You do a great job selling me. I sign a dotted line. What's next? What's the process? What do I go through?
Well, if your goal was to get really huge and really big and really be famous, I probably wouldn't have let you sign the contract. Because
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so there are podcast agencies that specialize in big growth shows, and where the goal of them is to monetize via sponsorship or to really develop like huge celebrity appeal. That's not typically the type of show that we produce. We produce much smaller shows that are really strategically deployed within an existing sales process, typically. And so these are podcasts that take a stranger and nurture them 2 or 3 steps down that ladder to engagement, so that when you get on a phone with someone who's listened to your podcast, well, then they're like, "Hey, I loved what you said in that episode," or "I just binged 3 episodes." And that conversation then changes from, do the song and dance and tell me why your service is good to, "I love what you're doing. When can we start?" And that happens again and again and again. But these are podcasts that are super niche. They're for a really particular type of investment client, or they're for a really particular type of, person in a legal situation. They're never going to be top top 100 podcasts because their listening audience is maybe a couple of thousand people total, but they're the right people. So the podcast designing process is really about, what do we need a podcast to do in the business? Do you need to nurture leads? Do you need to
Uh,
network with people in your space? Do you need to build a community online? I know in the show, you're always talking about your Facebook community. It's right at the top. It's right at the end.
mhm.
And that lets people know, that's what you're doing with the pod. That's one of the keys or the signifiers of success, is that that community is growing, right?
Yeah.
And so we figure out what are those signifiers of success, and we design shows specifically to do that. And when it comes to the the really big, the really famous shows, um, it's just I don't find them quite as interesting on the personal, the professional level as really highly niched, strategically designed, and surgically deployed shows. So
Like that.
we leave the getting famous to other people, and we focus on making money.
Nice. Great way to close that one. Okay. I mean, you just got all the attention of everybody in the room when you said that. I think every podcaster just went, wait, what? And they're going back 15, back 15. What did I miss? Okay. And thank you for bringing that up about my Facebook group. Folks, if you haven't joined, the Podcaster Nation yet on Facebook, please go look us up. All you have to do is have a podcast. Because I forgot to mention that because I was so excited about interviewing you. All right. But anyway, now that I've cleaned that up, let's get back to business here. I love this. So it's very niche. It's local. You're
Mhm.
working
Ca-
local for local folks.
It can
Um,
be local, or it can just be really topically niche. So let's say we've got, say if you're a wealth manager and you're not restricted by any laws or compliance officers to a particular geographic region, but you really do thrive with small business owners who are setting up their legacy for their next generation. That's a
mhm,
really specific type of person who could potentially become a high value client to you. So
yeah,
you need to design a show that's going to appeal to them and give them the information they need to know about you and your firm and how you can help them. So maybe you talk to other experts that they might be consulting, or maybe you interview past and present clients that you've got right now about their personal stories and how you solved their problems and how you created these great outcomes for them. Or maybe they comment on the news that your ideal client is reading, so that when you use this podcast then as your kind of opening gambit to get to know a new potential lead, they're like, that lead is able to say, "Gosh, this person gets me. They work
mm,
with people like me. They solve problems like the ones I have. They are totally worth at least a call."
yeah.
So it's um it's kind of simply shortcutting the knowing, liking, and trusting. And that's one of the most popular types of podcast that we produce. The other, of course, being relationship building, which is a whole other kettle of fish.
Okay, I love where we are already on this. You and I spoke briefly in our pre-interview, about how I'm always saying to, my podcasters, people I work with and stuff like that, that your podcast can be whatever you need it to be. It can also be
Mhm.
whatever you want it to be, but it can be many things in
Yeah.
terms of your marketing. It can be your 24-hour marketer. It can be your information
Yep.
highway. It can be your educational, footprint. Um, so you're taking a business and you're actually breaking it down and going, where is the podcast going to do the most good for you?
Mhm.
And then how do we structure that podcast to meet that need in your business?
Exactly. And then very
Wow.
importantly, how do we measure whether or not it's doing a good job?
Oh, okay.
Because this is where podcasting for business is very different than podcasting for pleasure or podcasting for passion or even podcasting as a business in and
Sure.
of itself. Uh, if you don't know that you're getting an ROI on your podcast, you can't keep doing it forever as a business owner. You just can't. Like the math doesn't work out. You need to know it's creating value, and you need to be able to look at look at your balance sheet and say, okay, the podcast impacted that, and the podcast impacted that, and doing that can be a challenge, but it's my kind of challenge. So that's what we really focus on, is what's going to tell us that we're doing a good job, or what's going to indicate that we need to pivot, or just admit that podcasting was not the way to go. And kind of having that discussion and being able to identify what those metrics are, I think is really the key to being successful with podcasting. Because sometimes being successful with podcasting means doing it for a while, learning some stuff, meeting some great people, but then ultimately deciding, no, really, we really need to be live streaming and not
Hmm.
podcasting, and making the switch that you actually need, because it's the business that matters in business podcasting, not the podcast. The
It
podcast is
does.
just the tool.
There you go. The podcast is the tool, and it can be whatever tool it is you need for that
Exactly. It
business.
can be a great tool, a custom design tool,
Love it.
especially for you, but it is still just a tool, and if it outlives its usefulness, gotta get a new tool.
Okay. And you weren't podcasting prior to this venture.
No. No,
Was
I didn't even listen to podcasts before we started producing
We don't want to tell anybody that. Come on now. Um,
them.
the Was your partner into podcasting at all?
Yes, she was very into podcasting. She
Okay.
got into podcasting pretty soon, like not terribly long after they came up with the term podcasting. So she's been in it
Wow.
for a long time in various capacities. Well, actually, she was a radio talent and sound engineer in Dallas way back in the day. So she's been
Yeah.
in audio since high school.
Nice. Nice. I hope she's making more money now than when she was with the radio talent. Because man, you would think that those people got paid, but we don't.
She's got stories.
Yeah. It's I've lived some of them. I understand. Oh my goodness, it's so crazy. Hey, you got a great voice.
Yeah.
Here's $5. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Yeah, so I know it, but that explains a little bit about the business. So was she doing she was doing personal podcasting beforehand, or was she working with businesses in this capacity?
She was working with businesses often as in-house production. So she'd be
Right.
doing the whole kind of management of the podcast from the back end for usually the business owner who would be the talent.
Got it. So that's where the idea came from, that you guys came
Yeah.
through and did this. So now is podcasting the main thing that you guys do, or is the podcasting for what you do simply a tool and a part of what you do for your business clients?
Yeah, so the business podcast spotlight's actually our third iteration of a podcast in the company. And I'll tell you, and you might find this a little funny, and those listening might laugh a little bit. I managed to successfully avoid having my own podcast for 5 whole years before.
This is the podcaster nation, right?
I know, and the thing is, I love podcasting as a medium, but I do not thrive on attention. I do not
Okay.
like people looking at me or listening to me outside of like one-to-one, very narrow context. And
Okay.
so, having a podcast for me, it's a challenge, and being kind of front and center. Even though I know I've got valuable things to say, I know I have useful things to say, but I'm a behind the scenes person, like at my core. But after 5 years, we kind of ran out of excuses, and it started to look a little weird that a production company didn't have their own show. So we used it initially to practice and to test out different things and to try different ideas. So different episode formats, different seasonal formats, different styles of editing, different styles of interviewing, different styles of
Oh, wow.
repurposing. And it was our incubator. And it made me much nicer to our clients as hosts. I became much more generous and forgiving of the various little things that can happen when you're a podcast host. So that was very valuable too.
I see.
And we did that for the first couple of years of podcasting with our old show, The Company Show. And then after 100 episodes of that, I thought, okay, good. We have experimented, we've learned, we've been able to like put a lot of our theories to the test. That was really helpful as well. And I ended that show and decided to start a new one. And this is kind of now our, I don't want to call it my forever podcast because if the data indicates that it should stop, then it will stop. But we decided to create something now that we had all of this information about how it worked and how we work as a team together, to create a show that was going to really let us talk about the thing that matters the most, which is podcasting for business. And, we've got lots of ideas about how that can be done, but we're not the only people who do. So I find different business owners who have podcasts and who are using them in different ways. And we do almost case study style conversations. How did you decide to do this? When did you start to podcast? What value does the podcast bring? How do you measure the value? What's next? And we workshop and we talk about it and we really discuss. And then in each episode, I provide a lesson. Here's how you can take some of that and apply it to your own business or determine if you can apply it to your own business. And so it's a networking podcast. I get to talk to great, cool business owners. It's also an educational and thought leadership podcast where I get to share my ideas and my thoughts. And it really is serving both of those roles. We're a dozen episodes in at the time of recording, and it's gotten really good feedback compared to like all of the practice. Our old podcast was good. People liked it. We got good feedback, but this time we hit on something that really worked for our business. And it's really gratifying to see that happen.
Nice. Nice. And so then does that also serve as sort of a calling card to businesses like, hey, check out our podcast. This is what we do and what we'll do for you. Is it like that type of, example, like showroom for what you're going to do for them
So
or?
I do use it in some cases, like for when it's appropriate. What the business use case for this podcast is it's relationship building with a focus on developing new referral relationships. So the people I have on the podcast, they get a good experience. They get to talk about their expertise in their business, and we promote it, share it, make it look good. We also talk about, hey, here's the theory that we have for why this is working so well. Here are other things people could do to make it look well, all taking from your shining example. And that often sets the stage for an ongoing relationship of different kinds. Maybe it's going to be collaboration, maybe it'll be cross promotion, maybe it'll be sending business back and forth. But it's a high level networking tool. As well as being an educational showpiece that we're able to use to help teach people who may not work with us one to one.
Excellent. All right. I love that. I mean, you're just putting everything right where it needs to be and everything that you're doing, every aspect of your business seems like it's where can this do the highest and best good? And that's where we're going to put it.
At
That's,
least so far as I'm willing to share publicly.
that's okay. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. I mean, you are talking about your business, so I totally understand. Um, yeah, it's different when it's a passion project, but I mean, it's your
Mhm.
livelihood, so you got to
I
look
have
good.
one of those too. I have a passion podcast that I do with some friends. I don't know if you know this, because I
Okay,
don't.
wait, what?
I co-host a sci-fi podcast called
Oh,
That's What Heroes Do.
I'm all in. Give it to me again. That's what heroes
Called
do.
That's What Heroes Do.
Okay, tell me about this. I need to know.
So this is it was started by a friend of mine, my co-host Tom Fox, who runs the Compliance Podcast Network, and you should absolutely have him on
I
the
just
show,
talked to
by the
him
way.
yesterday. I just met him yesterday.
Then perfect.
Yeah.
So Tom and I go way back. He was one of our first clients, actually, when soon after we
Oh,
started the
wow.
company, and we became really good friends. And then wanted to do a podcast about the new Star Trek Picard that was coming out, and I was having trouble finding someone to co-host this season with him. So I said, "Hey, I'll do it. I love Star Trek." And that was probably about 3 years ago now. And so now we've done Star Trek, we've done Marvel movies, we've done the mini series. We just did a whole review of DS9, which I'm heartbroken it's over. And so it's like it's a passion project. It's honestly I don't know how it performs in terms of downloads. I've never looked because for me it's a chance to talk about one of my favorite things with some of my favorite people every couple of weeks. And I'll keep doing it as long as they're willing.
That is so funny. I just had this conversation with him yesterday about Star Trek in particular, because I'm a Trekkie. And so I was like, nah,
I
no
too am a
way.
Trekkie.
That is
Let's
so
all be
crazy.
friends.
I mean, really. That's oh my goodness. That's so funny because I had a lady who does voiceover was also all about being a Trekkie and like, a nerd, type of thing. And so, I gave her a quiz on that episode. It was like, okay, Kirk or
Nice.
Picard, blah, blah, blah. And it went down the line,
Ooh.
type of thing. And You don't answer that if you're already good talk. If you're leaning Picard, just you know what? I like you, so I want to keep liking you. Just don't answer if it's gonna be Picard.
Cisco and Janeway. Sorry.
Wow. That's apples and oranges. So I mean, I got to give you that one. You can go that way because it's yeah, that's fine. I mean, Kirk is different.
Kirk
Kirk,
is different.
Kirk is old school. So all right, I got you. Well, that's wonderful. So now, when did that start with you?
Oh gosh, it was about the time I think the third season of the new Picard came out. I think maybe 2022,
Hmm,
maybe a little earlier. I could be mixing up this. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I just know we've been doing it since we started with Picard.
okay,
And we started with the first episode of that, and we just kind of kept going.
that's so
Or
cool.
did perhaps it was we also did the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe up to Endgame, which
Hmm,
was so much fun.
wow, I'll bet. Yeah. Okay. So did you grow up a nerd? Liking all this stuff, or is this something that
A
you
little
acquired
bit, yeah.
later in life?
I remember like at my family home growing up, Voyager was the Star Trek that was big when I was a child. So it was like we'd all pile into the big bed after supper and watch Voyager
Oh,
together, and that's
cool.
like one of my earliest family memories. And I think my dad had been waiting for the time that we were old enough to watch Star Wars. And so it was presented to us. I think I was about 10 or so, like with great ceremony. This is
Oh my, I did the same thing to my kids, so this is hilarious.
Exactly, yeah. And so like it was definitely a part of our lives in the culture growing up. And for a while I was definitely more of a Star Wars fan.
Sure.
Like I read all the extended universe books, Young Jedi Knights, uh
Oh, nice.
tons of this kind of stuff when I was a kid. And then as an adult I have drifted more towards Trek. But it does not affect my love for Star Wars. I think there's room for both. I'm vast and contain multitudes.
Yeah, this is awesome. I could talk about this all day, which doesn't help
Me
us talk
too.
about your business,
That's why I've
unfortunately.
got a podcast about it. You should have one too.
That's I have a lot of podcasts. I think Tom said something like that, like, well, because I made a comment like I have a lot of podcasts, and then I found out he has like 60, and I almost fell over.
One must never compare themselves to Tom Fox when it comes to content creation.
No, 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 no. Anyway, back to you, because this isn't
Yeah,
about
okay.
him. He had his time with me. That's over. All right. So this is about Megan and her nerddom and moving into all of these all these other things. I love that about you. Thank you for letting us know that. The all right, so your personal podcast, is that a weekly thing?
It's weekly when we're in session. So it kind of comes up when there's a new the way we decide on it kind of oh, this just came out. We have to watch it as it comes out and we'll record episodes as it comes out. Or for something like
Cool.
DS9, it's just like, it's we started that season, I think, in the fall, and it's like it's getting into wintertime. What would be really fun is rewatching all of DS9 this winter. So let's each pick our favorite episodes and we'll discuss them.
Yeah,
So it's not as structured as I would say recommend like a relationship building show for a law firm.
right.
But that's because it is a passion project. It's something that we do. We try to be as consistent as possible when we're releasing because a podcast, as Tom says, is your promise to your audience. But we do it's we're primarily doing it because we love the topic that we're talking about rather than for like external purposes.
Gotcha. 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 Well, that's wonderful. I love that you're just throwing it out there and demonstrating all of these different ways to use podcasting right now. Anybody who's listening to this is getting the full scope of
I
how
hope so.
awesome podcasting can be because it can be used for everything under the sun,
Mhm.
and I just love that you're demonstrating that in real time. The business podcast spotlight that comes out weekly.
Yeah, it's a weekly show. Comes out on Thursdays,
Okay.
and we are going to have it'll come out in batches of 12 episodes, mid-season break, 12 episodes, and that'll probably be our year.
Okay.
And then we'll keep doing that as long as it's working and as long as it's fun.
That's awesome. All right. So all right, let me get back to the business podcast part of it. I'm all in my nerddom right
I've
now, thinking about,
thoroughly derailed you with talk of
I
Trek. I'm
you
so sorry.
really did. It's yeah, I mean, I'm thought I was a better pro than this, man. I'm just off. I fell off my horse. So the business podcast spotlight. Usually when I get into this, we try and ask a couple of questions about, things like promotion and all that. You've
Mhm.
got a different kind of podcast because it's not a passion project and that's something you're doing personally. It's all business your
Mhm,
clients are business. So I'm curious for your target market and to grow your business itself according to your business
mhm.
model. What do you do to promote yourself, your podcast, your business?
A couple of things, not a huge amount of them, but a couple of things. So the each episode of the podcast, it exists in its audio form, but we also write it up as a proper case study with here's what happens, here's the situation, here's what was learned, here's what was experimented with, here's how you can do this at home. And we publish that on the blog, and I also publish it in a LinkedIn newsletter, and we send it out to our email community of however many hundreds of people are on that. And so that's kind of our main core of this is the life of an episode, is it gets recorded. The intro and outro get created, it gets turned into the case study, and then it gets released on these different platforms. We also, depending on the topic, either of the business that I'm talking to or the specific advice that was given, I add it to other areas of our business. So I've got certain ones that are in the lead up sequence to discovery calls. So if I know that I'm going to be talking to people who are in legal businesses, I will add a couple of episodes, either from this podcast or past ones where I have talked to lawyers who podcast so that they can see what it's like and what it might look like. And so that's another way we kind of strategically deploy them. They're on different pages of the website for, whenever it is relevant to say, hey, you're a business owner who's doing this thing, or you have this type of goal for a podcast, we can show you what that looks like. And that does a huge amount in terms of getting our intellectual property out there, which is great. It
Yeah.
never hurts from a relationship building standpoint to promote somebody that you've had on their show in various places. And that gives us another reason to follow that, and we can keep nurturing and building that relationship. And it gives us all of this education we can provide at scale. So it also saves us a lot of time. If somebody like a potential client or a current client reaches out and they're like, how do I do this? And I can actually say, oh, actually, you can check episode 3. We talked about exactly this. Check out the timestamp at, minute 25 to 28. Let me know if you have questions after you listen to that. And I've got those an index of questions and answers that it's really easy for me to pull that information because we track it and we store it and we make it easy to use. So these are all things that I recommend everybody does. But it does take a lot of work. So I
Yeah.
understand often it gets on the I know I should do this rather than the yes, I've done this list. And that's just the way of things.
I like it. So, in the mode of, promoting your business and how you use the podcast seems like it's a vital part of your sales cycle then, because
Uh,
you've shown them episodes and this is what we can do for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's definitely, I'd call it a sales enablement tool. And I do want to differentiate it. It's not a selling tool. So I don't sell directly to guests who are on the show.
Mhm.
Although that is a valid strategy that can, if carefully and elegantly done, not be sleazy. But
Appreciate the
that
preamble
does,
there. All right.
I'd call that advanced podcasting, is like account-based marketing with your podcast can be really, really effective, not a beginner strategy. So, but yeah, so it's a sales
Okay.
enablement tool. Um, especially for someone who maybe like myself doesn't like standing on the social media mountaintop shouting, "Hi, I'm so great, I'm so awesome." It's really nice to be able to have things where I can say, like, no, this is me talking about my expertise in a useful, functional setting. This can be valuable to you. And so that makes, for me, as someone who doesn't love the horn blowing of personal excellence, it makes it really much easier for me to share that kind of thing, and it can be really, really helpful in that way.
Interesting. Okay. So you're an entrepreneur. You're putting yourself out there all the time. You're on a podcast. You even got
Mhm.
a podcast talking about sci-fi stuff, but you are uncomfortable tooting your own horn. What
It
what
has
what
been
am I
posited
missing?
it's because I'm Canadian.
Wait a minute. You're blaming nationality for this? Because let me just tell you something. I know a lot of Canadian podcasters who are not only on that mountain, they have summer homes up there.
Yeah, no, that's true. And they're
So
from Toronto, but no,
um,
I'm kidding.
now we're getting
The
regional.
Canadians listening are laughing at that.
Oh my
I'll assure you. But no.
goodness. Okay, so how does that track?
I honestly, I don't really. I should probably, book in with a new therapist and really like explore where that comes from because it can be quite. I do find it sometimes it's a bit of a challenge to try and overcome because it makes me feel like I rather sometimes don't fit in like the online communities I'm a part of because it really is a culture of you should, talk about the things that you're great at and you should share your excellence and you should do all of these things and I love it for them. I do. I truly do. And I respect somebody who stands up and says, I'm great at doing this thing. I guess it just makes me a little uncomfortable. And I guess I don't know if my values somehow were transported into my brain from like the 1920s or something where, nice people don't talk about themselves too much. But I guess I kind of have that idea lurking in my subconscious. And yeah, it's an ongoing challenge to find the balance between giving people enough information that they can, make a decision to work with us or learn more about us, and just not really being comfortable being like, oh, we're so great.
Yeah. I don't normally run into that, with somebody who's in your position. I appreciate you being honest. There's certainly a lot of people who don't like to go out there and put themselves like out front.
Mhm.
So it's not like, that's odd or anything. And I certainly didn't mean to imply anything like that. It's just that in your position, someone who does the type of
Yeah.
things you do, podcasting and, a business on podcasting and reaching out to people and being part of the sales process. And I mean, honestly, coming across the way that you do, which is just like, a burst of energy. And I love it. But for you to say, yeah, I really don't like talking about myself, I'm kind of like, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess people are funny.
Oh, okay.
And I think I mean, when it comes to this maybe kind of ties things in a nice circle. So this is well crafted, right? That it comes back to uh uh doing these things from a professional capacity, even if I don't love doing them, they have a purpose. They have a use. They need to be done. And, of the people on my team, I'm definitely the best suited to do them. And so I do them. And I don't tend to think a lot more about it than that. It's got to be done, and so I will do it.
All right. So basically, since it fits
Yeah,
the system mindset, then everything's fine.
it's a part of the system. And until maybe we grow this company because I can hire a spokesperson. Um,
Beautiful.
someone exactly like Chris Hemsworth in that new Ghostbusters movie where it was the women Ghostbusters. Yeah, I would like one like that. And he can do all of the selling for the company. And I can just hang out with my spreadsheets and on our, service delivery, and everyone will have a great time.
All righty. So much for coming out of your shell. I think the shell has been cast aside. I think we get it now. All righty. Yeah, and you and I planned that entire full circle all the way around thing. So, it worked out great. I'll message Chris when we get off just to see if he's busy, and if he can help you with sales, we'll see what we can do. But I love it. Thank you for diving into all these different topics.
Oh,
The business sounds really exciting that you guys are doing, and I love how mainstream it has seemed to become with businesses having a
mhm.
podcast now. Are you finding that more and more? I mean, you've been doing it 8 years, so I'm
Yeah.
curious. How was the reception 8 years ago as opposed to how it is today when you walk to a business and go, "You need a podcast"?
Oh gosh, there is a lot less. So this is what a podcast is now than there was 8 years ago. And I mean, there's still a little of that. Sometimes I'm surprised that like podcasting uh can still be so like too I mean, you and I were both in the industry, right? So all of this is very normal and very, very understandable. All the vocabulary, all the terms, we get it. We live and breathe it. Um, Other people don't have that experience.
Right.
And they live lives outside of the world of podcasting, and so confusion about like RSS feeds, what's a host, all of that stuff that could still happen. But generally, the sophistication around what is a podcast has really improved, and I think there's also the kind of marketplace has developed to a point over the last few years where you can have a discussion where it's not going to be surprising to someone when I say actually getting a bunch of downloads and being really famous is maybe not the best way you can podcast, because people now are familiar with what is common podcasting. And every you say podcasting, people are going to say, okay, it's going to be a couple of people talking. It's going to release every week, and there's probably going to be sponsors. Cool. There's like the podcast that exists in the public consciousness, and with that understanding there, you can really, it's much easier to have a conversation about, okay, now you can take this part of it and that'll work. And you can take that part of it and that'll work. But there's other things that you can do. You can add things that are special for your business or for your industry. And when there's that baseline shared understanding of what a podcast is, it makes conversations a lot easier. Because then, I don't think I've had to say it's like on-demand radio in 5 years. But
I would imagine not. On-demand radio. Oh my goodness. Great way to describe it, though. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, it,
at
it
its
it got
core,
the message across when
yeah.
when we needed to back before, everyone knew who Joe Rogan was.
Yes. Right. He was the guy in Fear Factor 8 years ago, I'm pretty sure.
I liked him better when he was forcing co-eds to eat eyeballs.
That's alrighty. I recently had somebody review the podcast and said that I laughed a lot. I don't think it's my fault. I mean, I bring guests on that are funny, that are telling humorous stories. So I don't think it's my fault that I laugh a lot. I'm just I'm gonna kind of defend myself against that one a little bit.
Well, I think
But
it's a thing because that if your listeners have a similar sense of humor, you can be laughing together.
that's
And what a
what's going
beautiful
on.
thing.
That's right. Exactly. All right, great. So I love this about the business. I really do. Um, we could probably sit back here and talk about all this even before we get into the nerd stuff that we both are completely into. So let me get my corny question in there. It's kind of my Arnold
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger "I'll be back" moment. I got to get that in
Okay.
there. With everything that you're doing, and I mean, goodness, it sounds like you have a ton going on, which is wonderful. And congratulations again on the fact that this is your business. I
Thank you.
love that. It just sets such a great tone for everybody else who might be listening. Um, anyway, as you're doing all that stuff, what is the part about everything that you're doing that you love the most? And what is the part about everything you're doing that you just
Mm.
really, really, really dislike, would like to throw it out the window? I'd be fine if it didn't exist anymore, type of thing.
Okay. My absolute favorite part of the business is you're gonna laugh at me so much. You thought I was a nerd before. Um, it's writing SOPs, standard operating procedures,
That,
and
wow.
configuring automations. I'm going to put those two together. And so kind of building the machine of a podcast that works underneath the
Wow.
podcast. That's my absolute favorite thing to do. And that's, yeah, either whether they're doing it for clients or doing it for us, or, managing the whole production schedule is making those little tweaks that make things work and make things automated and make them easier. That's like my reward on a Friday afternoon after a good week of work is, I'm going to go dig into our project management software and make some like optimizations. So that's what I like the best.
Okay. I mean, unfortunately, it kind of tracks with everything I've learned about you today. So
That's
I can't identify with it at all, but I get it.
People like me
So
are very useful.
that's, we need people like you. Yeah. Because,
Yeah, and I think what I find the most challenging, I think we talked about it a little, it is sort of the systems around new business acquisition. I do find the most challenging, and they make me have to stretch the most and learn new things the most and try new things and kind of be uncomfortable in
yeah,
spaces the most. So I'm sure it's very good for me to do these things, but I do not enjoy it.
we got to stretch our comfort zones though, and the
It's
stuff
got
that
to be
pushes you
done.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah. Stuff that
yeah,
pushes you out is very often the hardest stuff to swallow, but it's
yeah.
absolutely
And so
necessary for sure.
yeah, and I think that's I mean, I have a business producing podcasts for other people. We're very, very good at what we do. And so for me, because it's a responsibility, I don't feel it's just for myself and it's not necessarily for the clients that we work with. I've got a team of 6 people. It's my job to bring in business so that we all have, full schedules. And I take that responsibility really seriously.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's very worthwhile to invest like the time and the money and the training and the different experiments to try and find new ways to make that easier, especially as things are changing so much in the podcasting space with all of the new tools that are available. The AI assisted editing and show notes production, like the industry's changing really, really fast. And so kind of stepping into the discomfort of learning the skills to stay relevant and to stay sustainable is high risk but high reward, and if not comfortable, very valuable.
Nice. Nice. Okay, great. I love this. And like I said, I could probably talk to you about this forever. But I appreciate you being so honest about that too. The if you did it Family Feud style, top five answers on the board. I mean, I think pretty much everything that you said that you loved would be on the other side of the board for most people. Editing always is like number one answer. It pretty much is just always there.
Oh, well, I
Uh,
cheat. I just hire people to do that. I don't do it myself.
That's fair. I mean, you're running a business. It's beautiful. So, another lesson for folks, if you hate it, outsource it.
Hire it
Goodbye.
out.
Hire it out. So, all right, that's wonderful. All right, as we kind of, pull things in here, there was one more thing on here I wanted to get to before we hit that last
Mhm.
question, though, and it was your video link. It was in your Podmatch notes and something about three mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I tried to look it up. I'm not sure if I did something wrong, but I couldn't get to it. But it was a connection there. And I'm not sure if it's a free video you're given or a video that explains things. Can you help me on that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely, yeah, and I thank you for mentioning. I may need to update the link in Podlink because we changed domains, and I may not have updated that link. So thank you for pointing it
Oh,
out
okay.
to me. But we do have a video training of the top three mistakes that business owners make with their podcasts, and what that is it breaks down what we kind of saw. And this is a training we built a couple of years ago. Is over like say the first 5 to 7 years that we were producing is what are these big mistakes or misconceptions that people make when they're getting into podcasting. And the first one, of course, is that downloads are the most important thing, and that they matter.
Right.
Because for the vast majority of businesses, they are the least important of all the metrics that we could be tracking. And small shameless plug for my book. I've got 15 of them that are going to make you more money than downloads. So that's big mistake number one. Another really, really common one is that everything is living inside the host's brain in terms of who to talk to, who have you talked to, where's an episode in the production process, has it been repurposed, has the guest been followed up with, all of that when it lives inside someone's head. And when we get started, it's only in our heads. But getting it out into a central brain, a single repository of knowledge, is going to give you so much of your brain and your mental energy back. And it can feel like it's hard to give up that control of what's happening when and why and being the single source of truth for your own podcast. But no one on your team should ever have to ask you anything about your podcast, unless you're late with recording. And they should be asking
Wow.
you where that recording is. It should all live somewhere that can be referenced and tracked back to. And the final one is failure to utilize it as the guest, like the relationship building machine that it can be. So a lot of people, this drives me bananas. They say, I want to develop my thought leadership. I want to become famous. I want to be an authority. So I'm going to spend all of my time on my podcast interviewing other people about how great they are. And that's going to somehow make me, as a business owner, as a thought leader,
Hmm.
noticed or popular. It won't. It's other people's IP. That can be very valuable, but it doesn't build your IP. But people go in with this idea, and so they're leaving this unbelievable wealth of value on the table because they're hoping they build their own IP by talking to expert guests. They're making the guests look good, but then they're not doing anything with that relationship. Because if you want to network, if you want to get to know other people, podcasting is the magic calendar opener. You can talk to pretty much anyone you want to if you have a podcast. But you have to look at all of the different touch points that you have to actually build a relationship and decide, what do I want this relationship to be? Do I want a new friend? That's a legitimate reason to do this. Do I want referral partners? Do I want collaboration partners? Do I want promotional partners? Do I want even clients potentially? And kind of having that strategic mindset going in, then it's like, okay, then I'm going to make sure that I vet people with a pre-call so that, I make sure that we are going to like each other enough to have a full episode. We're going to have nice chatter before and after the recording. I'm going to make sure that recording looks amazing so that they see I paid attention to them and how they look in the world. I'm going to create assets for the same reason, not because I expect anyone to actually share the audiogram, but I want the guest to know that I made the audiogram. I thought about making them look good. Are you going to follow up? Are you going to follow them on their socials? How are you going to engage with them afterwards? All of these things can be added to a process around podcasting and are going to take you so much further in your business than just talking to someone and then maybe letting them know the episode is live when it is. Right. And so that's just so much value of different kinds: professional value, personal value, emotional value, all just being left on the table because of this wrong assumption about what the goal of the podcast was. That was my soapbox. I'm so sorry.
Wow.
That went on.
No, I loved every minute of that. And I mean, they may have to play it back, a couple of times and take some notes because you unloaded pretty hard. I mean, you just took a howitzer to the whole program and knocked some things down. But
I feel
um,
very strongly about the relationship building aspect of podcasts, and I think it's poorly managed in most cases. And it doesn't have to be.
I understand, and I don't know if I disagree with you at all, to be honest. So that was great, but that's in your book.
That is in my
So
book.
people want to get your book. They go to website link. What am I
They
putting in
can
the
go to
show notes?
podcastingforbusiness.com to get the
Podcast
book Podcasting for Business. Best domain I've ever gotten in my life, by the way. Uh,
podcastingforbusiness.com. Okay. Now we talked earlier. You also have the onestonecreative.net. That's a different website. That's the company.
exactly. That's our production agency. And
Okay.
so that's where you can go if you want to find out the different ways we can support you as a podcaster. And there are a couple of different options.
Got it. Okay. I want to make sure I'm sending people the right thing. All right. So
Thank
cool.
you.
So that's at that link. That will be in the show notes. The other link
Mhm.
here, podcastingforbusiness.com, that's about the book.
Yeah.
That's a more personal aspect. That's going to be in the show notes. Um, all right. And the book is available for sale through the website then, or do they have to like go to Amazon to get it, or what's the story on that?
It is. All of the links will be on the website with the different ways that you can acquire a copy if you so
Perfect.
desire.
Perfect. Oh, I can't wait to read it. I'm definitely picking it up. So I love that. I love
I
that.
was
And
inspired by textbooks.
that's okay. I'm sorry. What?
I was inspired by textbooks. This is kind of funny. I worked with a book coach to get the book into the world last year, and she's like, what kind of vibe are you going for? And I very much did not want a business book or a personal development book. I wanted a textbook on how to podcast profitably. So that's what I tried to create and what I hope I accomplished.
Wow, like an instruction manual type thing, or you're talking
Yes,
like the old
it is in
in-school textbook?
excruciating detail exactly how to optimize a show for different business outcomes.
Oh, you're talking actual textbook, like from when we were in
Yeah.
school type. Of use
Yes.
like wow. So do I need to
That
go
was
get
that
like
was
a
what I was
grocery
trying to
bag
accomplish.
and make a cover to protect this one? It's just
Yeah.
like we had to in school.
Oh,
Okay.
you just unlocked a sense memory. I I remember covering those books in grocery store bags. Oh my gosh. And then decorating it. That was how you demonstrated you were cool with what stickers you had.
Right, you had to put cool stuff
Yeah.
on it because otherwise it's
Yeah.
just a brown paper bag. Yeah, absolutely. All right. I love that because I used to always just put like, cheat notes on there. Yeah. I wrote up all my times tables so they were there and that way I could just look over and didn't have to really memorize them. They're just right there on my book cover.
A very
Um,
efficient use of space.
I tried to follow some systems myself back in the day, but it just didn't take. So, all right. I love this. All right. So get the book for sure. I cannot wait to hear it. And I love your soapbox. I think it's fantastic. You got a couple of cool podcasts. The Business Podcast Spotlight. Everybody's got to go check that out. The That's What Heroes Do podcast. I'm going to go check out. Now, I assume I can just find that on Spotify or something. It's out there, right?
It's on Spotify and you'll also find it on the Compliance Podcast Network
Oh,
.net
goodness.
because
With
it's one of
okay,
Tom's many shows
good old Tom.
on
I'm going
on
over
his
there to
wonderful
find it.
roster.
You got it. Okay. Well, we're going to go talk to the Godfather, and I'll find that. I will find that podcast. So there's those two folks to go check out, plus the book, which will have the links. Let me ask you one as we kind of bring this together, Megan, and I cannot thank you enough for coming on here with all of this energy and all this fire and I love everything you did today. It was so
Oh,
cool.
thank you.
I love this episode. I'm having a blast. Um, give if you can. If you can talk to folks who are out there, we're talking to podcasters in a
Yeah.
big way out here in terms of who listens. And for podcasters out there who are not quite where you are, in the whole process, what's a really good piece of advice you can give them to help them, make it past some of these hurdles, make it past some of these
Yeah.
milestones, and keep on going?
I think my biggest piece of advice, it is connected to a standard piece of best practice advice in the industry. So everyone you talk to about podcasting and how to be successful at it is going to tell you that you need to have your why, your ultimate reason for podcasting, why it matters to you to do this. And my advice is that a why is not enough to be successful. Because what you need, in addition to a reason for podcasting, is a way to know whether or not you are successful at it, or whether you are achieving your ambitions. And that's the same. It's as true for if it's a passion project as if it is for a business. If you want to have a podcast to explore ideas and build community and share your passion with the world, how are you going to know you're successfully doing that? How are you going to know that what you initially thought was going to work is actually working? And what's going to let you know, hey, I need to rethink this. Hey, I need to experiment with something. Hey, I need to try something different. And I think at the beginning of a process, or if you've been podcasting for a while, now is good too, is to figure out, what does success look like functionally for me? Is it about how I feel? Is it about how much time I spend on it? Is it about how many new ideas I have? Is it about how much money I'm making? And figure out now what success in the future looks like, so that you can see as you go along and as you continue working, are you moving in the direction that you want to? Or are you moving in a different direction? And if you are moving in a different direction, is it a good or better one? Cool. But now right? And you can also it gives you the information to make the decisions that are going to be the best for you, in your hobby, in your business, in your life. But you got to think about it.
Nice. Love that. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm not even surprised that you ended like that with that kind of just, pulsating firepower. I absolutely love it. So, all right, Megan Dougherty, host of the business podcast Spotlight. Also, That's What Heroes Do, author of the book Podcasting for Business: How to Create a Show That Makes a Bottom Line Difference for Your Company. And we're going to have the websites all set. Megan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh,
Just giving everything you gave to everybody who's listening. I can't thank you enough. It was awesome.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you for creating the space to have this kind of conversation. It's one of the most kind of unique and expansive interviews I've had the pleasure of being on. So thank you for making that available.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Folks, that's been another absolutely awesome episode of The Podcaster Nation. This is the podcast that is about podcasters. It's for podcasters. It's done by podcasters. And as we demonstrated yet again today, this is the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. And folks, just keep sailing.